Hello everybody, my name is Squaggy and today, once more, we are going to be reviewing every single card from the new set, DZ-BT13. DZ-BT13 is a pretty hyped set. It's the first set of the year, which is a big deal. It coincides with the new season of the anime Paralactic Clash, which is also its name, and features a whole new kind of archetype known as the Fantome cards. Basically, alternate universe versions of cards you already know and love, and some of new ones as well. For example, there's an alternate Zorga, an alternate Blangdmire, and also some new cards. So this set is quite the big deal. So with this review, let's see if this set has what it takes to make an impact on the metagame. As of recording, the set has been out for like a day or so some of my opinions are also going to be skewed by some of the results that are coming out slowly via locals and stuff. Once again, the slides in this video are mostly done by Claude. That's why they look very nice. Say thank you, Claude. If they were done by me, they would not look as nice. If you've never seen one of my videos like this before, let's go over my rating system. At 4 stars, the maximum amount, a card or deck is likely going to be meta or feature in a meta deck. At 3 stars, it is possible for a card or deck to be meta or feature in it, but I'm not as certain about it. And at 2 stars, it's really not gonna be meta relevant, I'm quite confident about that, but it is still a good card or still in a decent deck. And at 1 star, the card is just pack filler level bad. And believe me, for every set, there are a ton of 1 stars. Now, a lot of the cards in this set especially belong to archetypes. Therefore, a lot of the cards are going to be rated in batches. We're still going to have individual ratings for all the cards, but we also have a large rating for the archetype as a whole. Furthermore, that larger rating is going to be affected mostly by the higher rarity cards. If those higher rarity cards are good, then we're probably going to rate the batch as a whole stronger than average. Because obviously you spend more money on triple rares than like normal rares, right? So I want to make sure that that price to performance ratio is there. And believe me, price to performance is something that we are going to talk about a fair bit this video, because some of the prices for this set have been pretty bad. I do like to keep my videos mostly focused on like the actual competitive scene, on actual card evaluation, but you can't really talk about trading cards without talking about the fact that they are physical objects that you must buy. So when we get there, I'll talk about pricing. But for now, just focus on this. Let's kickstart it off with something really simple. The quick start deck support in this set, 1 star. All terrible. Every quick start deck boss got a grade 2 double rare, which is basically combined rusher. Once you place your Vanguard, the grade 3 Vanguard you can soul +1 and call the unit from the drop zone. Then, if you're the grade 3 quick start deck boss Vanguard, it gains 5,000 power, and if you've persona rolled this turn, it gains 10,000 power. They all have these, and they're all bad. The quick start deck bosses are just too behind for simple cards like these to do enough for them. It's especially humiliating that stuff like Severcell and Cristianos also get these combined rushes when they thrive at calling stuff from the drop zone. I really struggle to see the point of these, and I struggle to see a reason why you would play the quick start deck bosses aside from novelty these days. So, 1 star. Everyone also got this 13k, 10k grade 1. As long as you have the quick start deck boss as your Vanguard, it gains 5,000 power and 5,000 shield. These are all bad cards. This is the type of card a DZ-BT01 boss gets, right? This is like a first wave level of support, and this is coming out almost 2 years after the quick start bosses. Insane that they are releasing these only now. Horrible card, 1 star. There are also these generics that span a couple nations. These are the Energy Blast attackers, which are 1 star. Basically, you Energy Blast 5 on attack, and they gain 10,000 power. But for every point of damage you have, the Energy Blast cost is reduced by 1 Energy Blast. Still a bad card. It could be a 23k Energy Blast 0, and it's still not good enough to run. There are a ton of decks with already big grade 3s who can hit high numbers, and this is just superfluous. There's basically no point to it. I wouldn't run this in anything serious, and I probably don't think it's fun enough to run in anything casual. So, 1 star. There are also these common generics. Basically, when the attack that this unit boosts hits, if you have already played a normal order this turn, you can soul +1 and retire the unit to draw 1 card. As the name I gave these suggests, they're Painkiller Angel but on hit. 1 star. Very bad. Basically no reason to play these, especially not in nations like Keter Sanctuary. Not only does that nation already have, Dissection Angel as a really expensive high rarity staple card, they also have Painkiller Angel, which is just like the same thing without all the caveats. Pack filler card. No point really playing these. 1 star. Crimson Moonlight. This is the order for all the Fantome decks. Basically, if you have a Fantome Vanguard, you can play this, check the top 5, and call a unit based on like if its grade is equal to or less than your current Vanguard. Or you can add another Crimson Moon to your hand, and if you didn't do either of those things, you draw a card. Why is this important? Well, a lot of the Fantome Vanguards require you to bind Crimson Moons in order to use their skills. Thus, for the most part, you want to run like 4 of these, maybe 3 in specific Fantome decks, but for the most part, you do want to run 4. However, this is not the only Crimson Moonlight card there is. There is also Enveloping the Planet is is a Crimson Disease, which is always treated as Crimson Moonlight, and it's the same effects, except if you whiff the top 5, you don't get any compensation in the form of a draw. Not only that, it's also 1 rarity down, so it's easier to find, theoretically speaking. And these are the stipulations. They're both regarded as the same card, so you can only run up to 4. And in the bind zone, they can't be chosen or moved. And in the damage zone, if you kind of break one into the damage, you can move it straight to the drop zone and then just put the top card into the damage zone instead. So you always have access to it for your skills. These cards are a little bit problematic. Not because of their actual text or whatever. I mean, it's partly to do with their text. But because the Crimson Moonlight is currently needed in about 4 or so decks. And they're going to only be needed more and more as more Phantom units come out. These are very expensive. They are like $50 a piece, maybe dropping by the time this comes out. But for the most part, these are very expensive for what they are. And for the card quality of the Phantom decks, it is a bit outrageous that they're this expensive. You may be wondering, well, if the Phantom decks aren't particularly good, as I'm alluding to currently, why are they so expensive? Well, the supply is really bad. You're not guaranteed 1 per box or anything. It's kind of hard card to get, which is why they even printed the rare in the first place to fix a problem that they created. As such, though I am rating the first one 4 stars and this one 1 star, just by virtue of the other one existing and having another skill, I would still recommend if you are a casual player, if you are someone who likes to play for fun, if you are someone who only goes to locals and not like a big regional event, if you are someone who is just new to the game and just wants to try out the Phantom units in the anime, do not buy the double rare. Do not feel pressured into thinking you need the like $40, $50 double rare playset. You really do not, and you should not buy those. Just buy the rare version. You will barely notice the difference in most of your games, and you will get a similar output and get to play a similar thing. I think it's really scummy practice to do this. I think you should just, print the double rare as a common and then just have it be everywhere. Because every Phantom deck needs this. It's just, you have to have it. There's no choice. And it really sucks that people, can't get their hands on stuff and also feel really gate-kept out of the Phantom decks because they are kind of interesting. They're fun to play with. But whenever you play them, you're just going to be thinking of the fact that you can't afford this double rare version. But if you can just get past that, get the rare version, it'll be fine for just testing, for just having some fun. It may not suffice if you're playing at a really high level. Then, if you really want to bring a Phantom deck to the high level, you may need to actually get the card that protects you if you whiff. Otherwise, not much point. Play the rare version. This is a really cynical move on the part of Bushiroad, the publishing company. Like, I get that they want to make money, we all understand that concept, but also you kind of have to treat your consumers with a bit of respect and also not kind of damage brand equity. People are rightfully upset about this online. In person, people also talk about how hard it is to get the moons, and also like, well, if you didn't pre-order them at a good price, you basically can't play these Phantom decks at anything resembling a competitive environment. It's just not worth it. Or you can, but you have to accept the fact that you're just going to be playing a worse version of a deck for seemingly no reason. It's very strange. Very, very strange that they would print something like this that is so cynical, so clearly cash grabby. It's outrageous, and if you can't afford the one on the left, just get the one on the right if you really want the Phantom deck. To put it into perspective for you, I may want to take a Phantom deck to a big event, Road to 3v3 Daivangasai. I might bring it, I might not bring it, who knows? But aside from that, I do purchase Vanguard product decently regularly. Like here and there, I'll get a new deck. I'll, try out like a pack or something. I attend locals every once in a while. I make content for the game. I talk about the game online a ton. I'm very invested into the game, into the fandom as well. And I'm co-parenting the double rares with my partner. It's really difficult to justify spending so much money on the double rares on the Phantom decks, which are just kind of okay. And it feels especially bad because the actual core of the decks themselves, I think they peak at like $80. Unless you're like exactly Blangdmire, who needs a ton of generics, then it feels pretty bad to have to spend $200 to supplement your $80 core. That's not a good feeling. I'm sorry to make a lot of this early part about this exact price issue, but it is important to talk about this and to kind of give you a frame of reference as to what kind of cards you're going to need and how you're going to have to spend your money in order to build some of the decks I'm going to talk about, because I don't want to advertise the idea that in order to play these Phantom decks later, you need to have the expensive moon. You really don't at a normal level of play. You'll be fine with the rare. And I can't in good conscience recommend you to just buy a double rare, because I know money isn't readily available for everyone, and I don't want to influence you into thinking that cards I'm about to talk about are good enough to justify that cost, especially when there is, by all technicality, a slightly cheaper variant on the right. And even that's not particularly cheap for a rare. It's like $5 for one. I promise most of the rest of the video will not talk about pricing stuff, but yes, just have to talk about that context. It's very important to me. Alright, let's move on. Alright, let's talk about Dragon Empire. Dragon Empire's set seller boss is Alphard Phantom. He's going to be one of the decks that really needs that Crimson Moon card we just talked about, and his gimmick basically is his Phantom skill is going to create a really powerful kill turn. The problem with that is that it must bind 4 moons. So not only do you need to play 4 moons, you have to find all 4 moons. And you have to do this by the time that you can gather enough moons, and you have enough resources to go for the kill, whilst your opponent hasn't collated enough resource. And one of the big issues with this deck is kind of that randomly having Elementaria or like the overtrigger in your opponent's hand is going to result in you just losing the game because your kill turn is going to whiff. And if your kill turn whiffs, this deck really doesn't have a lot going for it. And I rated it 3 stars as such. The whole batch as a whole is kind of like a 3-star deck. It's fine. If you bring it to an event, you might see a few wins here and there because, hey, you have a really powerful kill turn. You can cheese a ton of games like that. But at the same time, it's really hard to imagine a world where every game for like 9 rounds straight, this deck always gets its kill turn off, so I don't see it being particularly meta. It could be, but I'm not exactly confident on that. So let's go over the individual cards now. First up, the starter. Dragwitter 1 star. The stars for starters and PGs this set, they're just based on like aesthetics. I just don't like how he looks. I guess Dragwitter is the guy, and the dragon is... the dragon is fine, but I don't really like how Reki looks. 1 star. Thunder Hermit Gerbiter is the right line grade 1. Basically, when it's rolled on by the grade 2, you can check the top 7 to add 1 Phantom or 1 Crimson Moon to your hand and put it into your hand. And if you don't do that, you can soul charge 2. So the deck does need soul, so this is pretty fair compensation. And adding a Crimson Moon to your hand is really important. You really need to have as many opportunities as possible to find them. The Phantom cards from this deck aren't very bad either, so it's not too bad to find them either. So it's a 4-star card. If you go like +1 off this and +1 off the next right line, that's a +2 right line total. Speaking of the next right line, Blajet is a 4-star card as well. It's a very complicated way to basically draw 1. But it puts a card from the top of your deck to the damage zone, which is useful so that it kind of accelerates Alphard's skill, which requires the damage zone. And at the end of the turn, you put one of the cards in your damage zone to your hand, so it's kind of like drawing 1, or it's kind of like fixing your damage zone in case something really bad went there early on. Mainly, you really want to add stuff like Persona Rights to your hands, or stuff like the Restander that you'll see later. Those are really important for Alphard. Alphard himself is a 4-star boss in my opinion. For Soul Blast 2, it gets 3000 power for a card in your damage zone, and at 3 or more cards, your opponent has to pop a rear guard, or they have to remove 1 from their hand. This is a really good skill. Often, it's going to be like plus 9000 power, and then plus 15,000 power, something like that. And this really adds up in the late game. This is going to be a lot of where your power comes from later on, and the fact that you get compensation of a retire missing is good. There are a couple decks that choose to retire their full board, so it makes it so that they can't exactly do that. Those aren't necessarily like the meta decks in the format, but some decks do, and you might find them here and there. And its Phantom skill, kind of the big deal. Basically, when it attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, you bind 1 or more Crimson Moons from your hand, soul, or drop. All of the Phantom skill stats their cost, basically, the binding. You can bind X number of Crimson Moons from your hand, soul, or drop. Then, until the end of the battle, Alphard gains 1 crit, and if you bound 4, it gets another crit, 10k, and a drive. And if you Persona Road, your opponent cannot call Sentinels from the hand to the Guardian Circle. So, this is the kill turn I'm talking about. The plus 10k, 3 crit, 3 drive, Sentinel Restrict is really powerful. It's kind of like Blangdmire, except, you know, for Blangdmire, sometimes you can play an early game to the point where you only add 2 damage, and when Blangdmire divides, you'll still be able to say no guard and just take 2 or 3. With this, you are pretty likely to die if you declare no guard into Alphard. It is a very strong kill turn. But that's kind of all Alphard has going for it. Individually as a card in like a vacuum, this is a 4-star card. It's very strong. This is a very real win condition for the deck, but because of that, it is equally as strong as a lose condition. As you can see, you have to bind 4 cards at once to gain the full 10k, 1 crit, 1 drive. So you're basically never going to get, like, over the course of a game, go plus 1 crit, plus 1 crit, plus 1 crit, plus 1 crit. At that point, you basically have 0 pressure. You are basically always going to need to bind 4, which also means you have an extra brick condition. And if your opponent sees Elementaria, which doesn't go to the guard circle, or they see the overtrigger, they're gonna have a very easy time guarding Alphard. As of now, one of the higher numbers you can get for Alphard is with the boost order, boosting one of its rear guards. Later on, you'll see a grade 3, and making Alphard a 76k attacker on that turn. That is kind of the highest I've seen that I think is reasonable for Alphard. You can play the bad cards like in the anime that give him power, or some of the cards in his archetype that give him power, but those are very limited in scope and only work on that one turn, to the point where I don't think you want to run them. They're not very strong otherwise. Still, I think the card quality is quite high for him, but a deck is more than just its Vanguard, okay? So let's go over the rest of his pieces. Gamma Ray's Dragon is his restander, and it's 3 stars, which sounds weird, but let me explain. If your Vanguard is Alphard, +5. If your opponent is grade 3, +10. Okay? Simple stuff. And when your Alphard attacks, you can restand it if you haven't restored something else, so it's a 4-attack deck, and you also get to draw 1. That sounds like a lot. It really does. This is a bad card. Well, not bad, just kind of weird in Alphard. I think the goal is kind of, you're going to use this early game, you're going to draw a bit to build up your hand so that you can guard to get to your Alphard kill turn, and having 4 attacks on paper seems pretty nice. For early game, from like turn 3 to turn 4 maybe, this card is going to be very useful in chipping off cards from your opponent's hand, chipping off those triggers so that they can guard Alphard later on. Once you get to the Alphard kill turn, it's hard to justify this almost. I know that sounds weird, but if you've ever played something like Empoleon, who also has a restander, but a lot of their pressure is on the center line, it means that when you swing with your restander first, that's a free attack your opponent can kind of just take, and giving your opponent a chance to take a point of damage early on isn't ideal, at least in a deck like Alphard, because this makes it so they have 1 extra chance to check a defensive, for example. And if your opponent's hand is in a certain way where they can guard Alphard and you check the defensive for them, then that's bad for you. It's a card that reads really good, and to be clear, individually the cards are really good, and to be clear, in a vacuum, this card is quite strong. It's just that in Alphard, it feels a little weird. There are some end boards you probably will have that you just don't want to have him, because he's a bit on the weaker side still. Like at 30k, he's just okay. The other grade 3 they have, a Recurrence Dragon, it can hit something like 38k on P-Ride, which is a much better number and comes after the Vanguard has checked triggers. It's a high quality card, it just is kind of weird in Alphard, especially that it doesn't give power to Alphard himself. So this is kind of his own little thing. And he doesn't have very strong applications on like turn 2, so he can be kind of a weird piece early game. Therefore, 3 stars. This is a 3-star card as well. When your opponent's rearguard is retired during your main phase, or they're forced to discard, basically once you've used an Alphard skill of Soul +2, you can Energy Blast 3 and call this guy back. And he's going to be +3k per card in your damage zone, and he's going to refill your soul. He's also a 10k shield who can intercept. Take note, Geodral. This card's really good. This card can call itself back. This card is not going to be a 4-off by any means, I think he's a bit too clunky for that, but he gives you some, as his name suggests, recursion. He gives you some extra shield so you can get to your breakpoint, and if on a boost order variant, he is a 28k booster. Really strong stuff. He's basically only not 4 stars because I don't think you can find the space to run 4, and being grade 3 is kind of weird. You want a bit of early game poke here and there. A card that works early game, like something like Tifa or Form Revoltis, those cards work a lot better early game, and it can chip your opponent to the point where you can actually pressure with Alphard's kill turn. This doesn't work as well. It works on turn 3, and Energy Blast 3 is, I mean, it's basically free in this deck, but it does mean you have to kind of think about it before you use something like a Cycler. It also means you have a bit of energy restriction in deck building. Not that there's much to use it on except for the Cycler, but, you know, just in case. Still, great card. 3 stars just by merit of you can't run 4. It's just unfortunate, that's how it is. Dragweather Mardau is a 2-star card. On place, if you're Alphard Vanguard, CB1, retire one of your opponent's things and you gain 5k. If you have an Alphard Vanguard, if your damage zone is 3 or more, plus 5k again. He's a 20k attacker and he pops 1. He's just kind of okay, he's a bit slow. I could see you running it because retire 1 is decent. That it doesn't like draw you a card to dig for moons, which is bad in this deck. 20k attacker is fine, but nothing to write home about. He's not awful, he's really not. Retiring like a front row intercept is useful. There are a couple back row intercept in this game nowadays, but it's highly unlikely you have the space for it. You could maybe fit in 1 or 2, I wouldn't do it though. And for what it's worth, he's quite slow, he only works on turn 3. Again, stuff like Fortin Revoltis can do similar things, but work much earlier. So, 2 stars. Dragweather Epikill is a 2-star card as well. Basically, when Gamma Rays is going to be standing during the battle phase, you can restand him as well, basically meaning you have 2 full columns for that turn, and it gains 5k. And then it also has a Shenri skill if you have 3 or more damage, which you often will. Why is this card 2 stars? Well, Shenri exists and Shenri works early, which may complicate how you build the deck. I don't think it's a particularly bad card either though. I think it works very well with Gamma Rays. I just don't think Gamma Rays is very good, and thus this card won't be very good because of that. It's just a good card that supplements another good card, but the card quality right now in like a top meta strategy is way higher than good. So even though overall the package is good, sometimes good just isn't enough. And that's kind of how the whole deck feels right now. It could get better, but for now that's what it is. Dragweather Cirrus. Rest it, give your Vanguard 5k. Bad card. Very limited in scope. Loses 8k on the sides. Not very useful overall. Redome. Redome is a combined rusher. CB1, call it back to rearguard when you place your Vanguard, and if you're on Persona Riot, both your Vanguard and it gain 5k. He's a little better than the last card we just talked about. but he's still not great. CB1 is kind of hefty. I mean, it's only like Gamma Rays who needs a CB, but if you're running like Ford and stuff, you want to use your CB there. When you're discarding up a Ride, which is how you're usually going to get him into the drop zone, you would probably rather be dropping something like Habitable Zone. You would be rather dropping Recurrence Dragon. So it is pretty difficult to find time to get this into drop zone. And he's a dead card until like turn 4. So I wouldn't run this. I think it's quite bad actually. Speaking of Habitable Zone, 4 stars. You need to run 4 Habitable Zone in this deck. Its skill is just when you discard it to Ride, you Soul Blast 1 or EB3 and add a Crimson Moon to your hand. And when you put it on Guard Circle, you can, it says Soul Blast, but it's supposed to be CB1 or Energy Blast 3 and draw a card. This is really good in exactly Alphard. You really need those moons to get going. So you have to run like 4 of these. You have to make sure you can get your moons into rotation. And it's not like you use energy too much aside from Recurrence Dragon. So just keeping like 3 energy going into turn 3 will be pretty good. And you can pay the soul here and there because Recurrence will put soul back into your soul. That's a weird sentence, but yes. So the reason why these don't go into the generic pile that I talked about just now is because they're not all 1 star. Some of these are actually 4 stars, some of them are 3 stars. It really depends on how like the Phantom decks right now as of release need it. This is 4 stars without knowing that Youthberg Phantom is coming out. Like, I'm recording this like the day of that episode. So it is pretty unlikely that my rating would have changed with that. But yeah, this is a good card. If you haven't picked it up already, it might be too late for you because Youthberg Phantom has caused a lot of hype for this card. But in Alphard specifically, 4 stars. Okay, Jiva actually got some new cards this set. They got like a card, okay? And it was a major consistency buff. Jiva was already quite good going into set 11, and this raises the floor a lot higher for the deck. Basically, you're less likely to whiff stuff. You're a bit more flexible on toolboxing. You can run like now a lot more one-offs and stuff in this deck, which is good because you want to kind of have a slew of options that you can go through every turn, just in case the situation changes. I've seen some variants that are more aggressive with the new card. I've seen some variants that are more defensive with the new card, using stuff like Vill's Vyrina, and the great one that gives your Trickstar and Swendy's more shield. So that's a pretty interesting build. And my only issue is that the deck is still kind of difficult. You can still break on the deck, but it's so much better than it used to be. It's a really strong card, and this is the card in question. Blaze Maiden Bleshia is a 4-star card. When you discard it from your hand, you can show Nirvana in your Ride deck, or you have a Vanguard of Nirvana, EV3, put one of the overdressed cards into your hand and shuffle. Crazy Searcher. Search anything basically. It works early, it works during Nirvana's own skill. She's nuts. And the second skill, if you Soul Blast 2 and retire it while it's on the board, you can get any Prayer Dragon from your drop. That is already kind of superfluous. This card is really good as is. Having a second skill there that just gives it just a little bit more to do to call back maybe one Trickstar, maybe call back a Aparagia. Very strong stuff. I would be very surprised if Jiva saw like no results this format. Really. I think Jiva is currently one of the stronger decks in the format. Maybe not tier 1 or anything, but she is very tough. If you like Jiva a lot, I would recommend learning the deck. I recommend picking these up. She's only a double rare. She's currently pretty cheap as well. I think this deck is really good. Highly recommend trying it. It's super fun as well. Equilibra also got a new card, and it's sort of a 4th attacker before your opponent is even grade 3, but it is not a very good 4th attacker. I mean, it has some other virtues, and that's fine, but it also doesn't add to Equilibra's game plan, which is really behind right now. A lot of Equilibra just shows his age. DZ-BT13 wasn't a very strong set on release, and he's not very strong right now. A lot of the pieces are still locked to your opponent being grade 3. The power threshold is a lot lower than it used to be. Like, what he can achieve now, other decks can also achieve. And it's hard to play a deck like Equilibra, whose only gimmick at the time was that he's the best at having high numbers, he's the best Unga Bunga aggro, when other decks now have Unga Bunga aggro and way more. So, let's go over it. Dreadrider Kutub, 2 stars. If you have a grade 3 Equilibra, it can intercept and also from the back row. And if it is overcharged, it gets 5k shield. And when your Vanguard swings, you can Soul Blast 1 and restand him. This, I believe, is your first way to get a 4th attack early. Both the PR and Shahub are both grade 3 locked, I believe. So this is your only way to have like a 13k poke twice. Is that good? Not particularly. It's fine. It's nice to have an extra defensive piece in Equilibra, who normally doesn't have a lot of defensive tools. But honestly, his ceiling and his floor are really low relative to the current metagame. So I wouldn't hold my breath on seeing Equilibra anywhere in a competitive environment. I think it's a good card-ish. I think Equilibra, despite me saying all of that, is not as behind as some of the real 1-star decks out there. But this is a really bad deck. I would not play it. Voracite Dragon. Sorry, my German is pretty bad. When chosen by Grade 3 or greater Equilibra, soul charge 1 plus 5k. Bad card. Don't play this. You have way better options in Equilibra if you want an overcharge Grade 3. Play those instead. Now on to some of the generic common slop. Everyone's favorite section where I just say 1 star over and over again. Twist Gyre Dragon, 1 star. If your opponent has no rear guards in the same column, you can boost. Yay. Play the boost order. This is not Twist Gyre Dragon, but you don't care about his name, do you? When it's retired for a cost of your Vanguard, EB3, put it back to your hand. Why would you want to put it back to your hand? I have no idea. There's no reason to put back a 10k attacker and nothing else into your hand. 1 star. The new PG art, Liael Animus, 4 stars. I really like her. She's cool. I believe this is our first PG who's a woman for Dragon Empire, right? I mean, the dragons are dragons. You don't know their gender or sex. And the last guy was a guy. This one is woman. Yay feminism. They too can be sentinels. 4 stars. Okay, now let's talk about Blangdmire Fantome. And this is how we'll segue into Keter Sanctuary as a whole. Blangdmire Fantome is a 3-star deck based on the set contents. I think his resource game is very good, but I think he struggles with a kill turn. He's a little limited in how he attacks. We'll talk about this more later, which makes it so it's kind of difficult for him to kill. You really need to find a ton of your moons, and even once you do find them, it has a similar problem to Alphard, where Alphard has used them all at once. Blangdmire has it to use 2 times total at best, and you can't use only 1. So if you only have 2 moons, you only get to use it once. If you have 3 moons, you only get to use the skill once as well. That's really bad. It means sometimes you're just going to be stuck on having no moons and your deck's just going to do nothing for like 2 turns. And while the resource game is really good, because it has a really bad kill turn, you're going to struggle with the later game when you're out of Fantome skills and you can't play that resource game anymore. There is also a very powerful skill he has when you have 4 bound, gaining the crit and also the heal that you've seen in the anime, but that is actually persona reliant as well. And while you can kind of search persona right in this deck, it still is a net negative to have that restriction. The deck is fine because Keter Sanctuary's generic pieces are some of the strongest in the game, but it does have a ton of flaws, and we'll talk about them in a bit, but it's not as good as I immediately thought. I thought that this was going to be a really meta contentious deck, but honestly, after a bit of testing, a bit more thinking about it, I struggled to see a world where this is like breaks into tier 1, and I would even say it struggles to break into tier 2. Omen of Exaltation, Cavity Militia. All the Fantomes that you're familiar with, like Blangdmire, got their right lines and some of their units also changed over. And this guy is horrifying. This is not Cavity Militia, for one, and he's just kind of uncanny looking. He's a bit small. I do not like this. 1 star. Holoraptor, in his new Keter Sanctuary build, when rolled upon by Big and Fang, you can put 1 Crimson Moon to the soul and then shuffle. That's not great. It is good in Blangdmire to have stuff in your soul. You need to soul blast for some costs. It obviously is thematically similar to how Blangdmire was before, but just having it to your soul is not great. That's not really a plus in any case. And not only that, it's a plus that's slow. Why don't I do that on like grade 1? Was that too much? I don't know. Point is, I think this card is a little mid. But unlike the other Blangdmire ride line, I mean, this one at least does something. The other one usually just shuffles my deck. They can Fang himself. 2 stars. When you ride Blangdmire, you can Soul Blast 1, usually your moon, then reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You have to reveal them, put a card into your hand, and then put the rest into the drop zone or shuffle your deck. He's okay. It's like Soul Blast 1, draw 1. Filling up your drop is also quite useful. But I mean, just going +1 in this day and age, it's just okay. But it's just not very, like, it's not very flexible. Only looking at top 3 basically is just draw 1, which I guess is fine, but nothing to write home about. Zero of Salvation Blangdmire Fantome himself. 3 stars. Act, you CB1 and bind 4 from your drop, which is why Vacant Fang is trying to fill up your drop. All your front row units get 5k. At 10 or more bind zone, you get +5. At 13 or more, you get another +5. This peaks at +15 basically, but for a lot of mid-game, you'll see like +10 maybe. And when you attack, you can put a card from your bind zone to rearguard circle. Basically, you get a 4th attack with Blangdmire. And with the Fantome skill, you EB3, binding 2 or more up to 4 Crimson Moons from your hand, soul or drop, and you can do the following effects. At 2 or more, you can call a unit back from your drop zone, and at 4 or more, you also gain a crit, and if you're Persona right, you get to heal 1. Really good stuff. These skills are quite strong in a vacuum. I struggle to see a world where Blangdmire can easily kill you. He's a bit slow. The power scaling is nice, but, you know, takes a bit of time to get going. And if you, like, do the math on how binding works, if you're not getting, like, let's do the math together. If you bind 4 cards, and then you bind 2 moons on turn 3, that's 6 total bound. That's fine. You get 5k. Blangdmire swings, you call one, that's 5 things bound. Then you go bind another 2 moons, put up to 7. You bind 4, that's 11. And then on swing, you call one, that's 10 theoretically. So on turn 4, your Persona Might / kill turn, you know, if you're ripping this skill as fast as possible, and you found every moon by turn 4, that's just plus 10k to your front row. And once you can get plus 15 to your front row, then you're not going to have the crit maybe. Or you can slow it down and you can have plus 15, but it takes a long time to get there. And God forbid you like whiff the moons, then you can't accelerate it. Then you're going to be stuck on 5 even on the 4th turn of the game, which is not good enough. There's just a lot of brick conditions to this card. I'm painting this like it's really bad, but it's not that bad, okay? Healing is a strong skill. There's some resource efficiency in getting a card back from your drop, but everything is costed kind of weird. CB1 and EB3 is kind of tough to do, especially if you need to pay the cost for something like Koflagon, the cycler for this deck, and something like maybe Zamug. Sometimes the cost can overlap, making it a little weird. If you manage it well, it's not too big of a deal, but it's still something that I scratch my head and wonder why you have to manage it so well. It is fine. With Keter Generic supplementing it, Blangdmire is probably quite strong, but I don't see this being anything more than a 3-star card. Moving on, Knight of Charity Badak, 4 stars. This card is really good. Basically, when you call something with Blangdmire's skill mid-battle phase, you can call this card to the back row by binding a card in your drop, so you don't lose out on the bind total in your bind zone. And when you place the unit on rearguard circle other than during the battle phase, if you have a Phantom Vanguard, you can check 5 and put 1 Blangdmire to your hand or 1 Crimson Moon to your hand. This is really useful because this deck really needs Persona Ride, and you really need to get all your moons in rotation early so you can get the skill as early as possible, especially for a deck which every moon breakpoint is multiple of 2, so you have to find all 4 in rotation. You can't have a halfway skill like some of the other Phantom decks have. You have to bind 2 always, basically. This can find you like the 4th moon you're missing. And finally, it's got Mobile Mind skill if you have a bind zone Crimson Moon, so it's super useful. This card does a lot for the deck. It helps you manage Blangdmire's high counterblast costs, because you have the CB1 for Blangdmire, there's CB1 for something like Zamug later on, and there is CB1 for something like Carebrave if you're playing that. This makes it so that if you go into your turn 3 with like 1 card face up in your damage zone, you can still do a lot of things and make sure you don't get damage tonight the rest of the game. So you can always keep playing your turns out at max output. Just means you have to watch out that early game you don't willy-nilly use the counterblast and get locked out of a turn 3. But yeah, this card is really good. Comparable to something like Helgvar. Helgvar herself is kind of searchable off Moon Gate, which I find a lot stronger than this, who you have to kind of hard find. But this Badak is still very, very strong. 4-star card. Really makes the deck come together. For front row rearguards, we have Knight of Inscription Zamug at 3 stars. This is the Zamug from Dark States now turned into a Keter Sanctuary Knight. When you call this card, you can CB1, as long as your opponent's Vanguard is grade 2 or greater. Check top 2, put a card into your hand and then into your soul or bottom of deck. That's pretty good. It's a CB1 draw 1 with an added benefit, but it's a little bit on the slower side. You can't use this on the turn 2 if you're going first, but it's still not a bad card. When it attacks, it gains power, and if you called it via Blangdmire's skill, it gets 10k, and just like the other Zamug, you an EB3 and gains 1 crit. And this one, unlike the other Zamug, doesn't need to be at base 1 crit for you to gain the crit, so you can stack a crit on it and then put another crit on it, and this is going to be a lot of your win condition, right? This plus Valnot is going to create a 2 crit attack, and is going to be a big deal for your opponent to guard. Again, it's 3 stars, it's good. It's not amazing. CB1 and EB3 are kind of costly, and this can get a bit clunky with something like the Moon Searcher, which you have to run, whose guard skill requires EB3 or CB1 to benefit from. Kind of just reduces the utility of the rest of your deck because of that. He's not bad, it's just that something like gain a crit on a rearguard swing, which is very telegraphed, it is sometimes not enough pressure, right? Because a lot of the time you're going to be guarding that kind of attack anyways. I know it's not the same, but this is more comparable to something like Nana Clear, whose crit attack comes in a 4-attack deck, and thus is more manageable than something like Toys, which has a crit attack on a 5-attack deck. This, even if you go for the 5-attack line of Carebrave during your battle phase, you're still stuck on 1 crit as a result, because this has to be placed via Blangdmire's skill. So I do find that this card is a bit limited in its finishing scope, but it's not that bad. So, 3 stars. Knight of Countenance at Veil. When this card is placed, if you have Blangdmire in your right deck or your Vanguard, you can check top 5 and mill 1, and you can stand it by Soul Blast 1 during the battle phase if you place something in the same column. This is 2 stars, it's not so bad, but I do find it hard to use because you want to use Badak, right? You want to call Badak out. So this has a lot more competition in its grade 1 slot, and as such is a 2-star card. It's not bad. If you can find the space, I would run it, but also grade 1 is very highly contested in Keter Sanctuary. So, you know, would you rather this or something like Sirgon, for example? choice is yours, and I think Zorga is better, so 2 stars. Matter of reconsideration, Restall 1 star. You can call this card the Rearguard Circles like a combined rusher if you bind a card from your hand. This is okay in that you can speed up your bind zone, but it's not that good on board, so you're just using it to speed up your bind zone, which is not that great of a use of it. If you want to speed up your bind zone, I recommend something like the Hostage package instead, so you can call a trigger to Guard Circle by playing it early and after binding it, or you can make a kind of perfect guard loop with it. In any case, I would not be playing this over something like Hostage package if you really want to speed up your bind zone. This is not Restall, I just never changed the name, but basically, it's a big beater, it's 23k, it's a 1 star card, you don't even need to know her name, it's not a good card. Koflaglan, who is the cycler for this deck. As of recording this, we don't know if Keter Sanctuary has another Fantome on the way, but what we do know is that these costs can get a little high in this deck, just because Blangdmire needs to EV3, Zamoog needs to EV3, he needs to CB1. Again, the Soul Blast 1/CB1 is wrong on all these descriptions, I think. But it's Soul Blast 1 for the ride-up, which you're basically always going to be using. But once you get to like late game on Guardian Circle, it is very hard to find the energy or counterblast in order to pay this cost. I think this is asking for a lot in Koflaglan to be able to stretch the resource really thin. So it's only 3 stars because, I mean, you have to run a fair amount of him, but because he kind of falls off really late in that there's no extra resource to draw the cards on Guard Circle, it has less utility than something like Habitable Zone does in Alphard, where Alphard is a bit more lenient on those resources, right? So 3 stars. Still good. You probably gotta run a few, but you probably can't run 4. Okay, Alden also got new cards. The cards he got, there's one of them that's actually good. It is still on the weaker side of card power, and it doesn't give him anything new or interesting to do in terms of like a finishing power, but it kind of keeps him modern. The support is confusing, and you'll see why in a bit, because I think it could have been stronger without much hassle, okay? So let me read it. Gigantic Venerator is, to me, a 3-star card. Basically, when you discard it, if you have a grade 2 or greater Vanguard, you can call it back with Soul Blast 1. And when it's placed on Rearguard Circle, if you have Alden as your Vanguard, it gains a 5/5. And if it's placed by the ability of Alden, it gets another 5. So he's kind of big, he's kind of good on the defense, and he is your Gojo, like from the Kai Start deck, right? I think he's good, but I also think he's very limited in his scope. I mean, he's another front row unit for Alden. Alden doesn't really need those. He's good early game, obviously, because you want to discard him and then call him back so you can keep up the aggressive pressure. But there's a cost to that, and you can't call it early like you do in something like Dragon Empire with the new Dino Dragon Grade 2. It's just a bit confusing to me that they didn't see the need, or they thought that they couldn't make this card stronger, because I think it could have been much stronger without breaking Alden too much. I think Alden is quite good as is. I just think that this card may not find its home just yet. It has a lot of competition in the front row, and it doesn't give Alden a new unique tool that can make it more meta relevant, I think. Card's fine though, it's pretty good. Hopefully it finds its home soon. I just worry that it's too much board space needed for all these good Alden cards. This is not Restall again, I'm pretty sure. I just do not change the name on these 1 stars. But this is an Alden Grade 1. You can Soul Charge 1 or EC2 when you place it by card ability. 1 star card, there are just better things to play in Alden. Even though gaining some resource is nice, you have an Energy Blast 4 Rearguard in this deck. So EC2 is nice, it's just hard to find the space. Alright, Knight of Resplendent Beauty Bellicent. This is a 1 star common. Basically, it gets 18k on boost if your opponent is grade 3, and afterwards you have to kill your whole row. Do not play this card. Go neg 2 to have plus 10k, not worth it. Knight of Bloodwind Kill Code. When it attacks a grade 3 or greater, gains 10k. Nope, bad. Also, it has to make it so when your opponent has not taken damage this turn, only then do you gain 10,000 power. Very bad. Don't play this. This is very slow as well. It's a grade 3 or greater. If this was like a grade 2 or greater card, maybe there's some applications in aggressive builds of Keter decks, maybe like an aggressive Alden could do it. Like this, not so much. Knight of Utmost Sincerity Reynold. If any player's Vanguard is placed by card ability, +5/+5. 1 star, not very good, a bit too situational, wouldn't recommend it. And the new Perfect Guard, Knight of Wing Embrace Rapinio. This is a 4-star card, really like the artwork, I love the angel aesthetic. I think it's cool that the wings are also her shield. So overall, gets Keter Sanctuary, most of it is Blangdmire stuff. It's okay, the whole Keter Sanctuary is fine, just wouldn't hold my breath over any of these being super meta relevant. I think they could get a top here and there, but probably nothing crazy. Technically still in Keter Sanctuary though, and before we move on to Dark States, let's talk about Liael's. So Liael, both Amorta and Odium got a new grade 3 in the form of Liael Animus, and I think she is very powerful in both nations. I think both nations' Animus decks will at least be fine, at least good, and all three, including Draconis, have been supported very well from this set. I'm making kind of the bold claim that it might be the strongest deck from this set, but I guess further testing kind of off screen and before these slides are finished make me think that maybe Odium has a couple too many issues to be considered a top tier strategy, and Draconis, I mean, I think it's good, but probably won't be playing the Animus builds. That's my imagination of that. So let's go over the cards. One who bears Resolve and Sin Liael Animus. Basically, you can only ride it onto Odium or Amorta, not Draconis, and that's Persona Ride. And when you play it on a VC, you can get all the skills of an Odium or Amorta in your soul. Then check top 5, put one into bind or one into gauge, and if you bind it, you put a bind zone card to drop, you gauge it, put a card from your gauge to the drop. And finally, if you have already divine skilled this fight, during your main phase, because it's an axe skill, you EB3, and this unit gets the skill to stand the rear guard after she attacks. Basically, the turn after your divine skill can start using this. 4-star card, obviously this card is very good. It helps Odium a lot because Odium's problem has been that nowadays decks are so much better at living the divine skill turn, and she can't close out a game before she decks out. This really helps with that. You can EB3, get another attack, and in Odium it's a big deal because the regress gauge gives you a ton of power to your front row. It's also nice as a consistency piece to make sure that you have a ton of cards in your gauge so that you can find the pieces you need, like Anachronus or the Colossus that can call itself out. If you're missing those, you can even add a Bane technically, but you know, that's less likely. And it lets you loop your Banes because you can put a Bane from gauge to drop and then play the Bane from drop again via the Anachronus Dragon so that your Vanguard always has a bit more threat to her. I guess the main issue I have is it's just another grade 3 in Odium, which already struggles with kind of having fake hand, and the bind zone effect isn't as useful in Amorta. In Amorta, the Energy Blast 3 skill is really good. You can make 5 attacks, triple drive every turn with Gabrielius and her, and that's great, but having stuff in your bind zone as a toolbox doesn't work in Amorta. It works really well in Draconis, but not Amorta. So that to me feels a little bit confused. You can run this in like a Draconis Amorta hybrid, but I just think that's a bit clunky. But still, great card, 4 stars. Sky Engraving Decree, Urut and Liael, 4 stars. When you put it into bind or gauge zone via your Liael skills, you can check top 5 and then put a grade 3 into your hand, so long as you haven't done it this turn. Then when this unit is placed on rearguard from hand, CB1, draw 1, and when it attacks, you gain 5k, if opponent is grade 3, 10k, and if you gain 10k, you get to put one normal unit from drop to the soul or to bottom of the deck. This card is really good. Added consistency piece, something to play early game, and also prevents you from decking out and fills up your soul in stuff like Amorta and Draconis who really need it. This card is really good in Draconis. It's a really good thing to play early game and it fills up your soul, so you can always have the soul to keep using all of the important effects in Draconis like Religiel, Gabrielius, and even stuff like that as an angel. It also helps a lot with deck out. You will not deck out in these decks. You can play grind games like nobody's business. 4-star card, really good. The space is kind of tight in something like Odium. I've seen some list run 4, some list run like 1, and it doesn't call itself out from gauge, so it can be kind of weird to use on the board, but it's overall fine. This card is very good. Next up, Steam Performer Laera, 4 stars. When this unit is discarded from hand during your turn, if your order zone has the Destined Timepiece, Soul Blast 1, call it back. This works during your Divine Skill cost, this works during Ride Phase, very good card. And on Guardian Circle, if you have the Destined Timepiece, this unit gains 5k. Really good stuff. Highly recommend playing this at a couple of quantities. It's a 10k shielder, it helps you with aggressive discarding. Really recommend this card, super strong. They can all be winners. Gear Eagle of Recovery basically restands itself if the unit in front stands as well. Basically, if Liael stands something, you can stand this. 1 star, you don't want to run this in your Liael decks. Both Odium and Amorta have much better grade 1s to run. Boundary Piercing Colossus. When put into your regress gauge, Soul Charge 1. Gain 5k to 1 unit, bad card. 1 star. If you want to play this, play Amniditana or something. Next up, we have Gear Dragon. 1 star overall. It's fine. I just think Chrome and Dragon is really behind still. And the Gear Dragons right now just aren't very good. Jet, Growing Dragon, Time Stabbing Dragon, God forbid. All quite bad. Collapsing Hole Colossus. When placed on Rearguard Circle, you can CB1, draw 1, and it gains 5k if your Vanguard is grade 3. And it gains 5k if your Vanguard is grade 3. It's fine. When you put it onto Guard Circle, this gains like a ton of shield. If you Soul Blast 1 or EB3, based on the grade of the card in your bind zone. In Chrome and Dragon, this is a 25k. And when you put it into deck or bind zone, if you have a Gear Dragon, the next CB cost you pay off one of your rear guards is minus CB1. Card is fine, just Gear Dragons are very behind. I think the text on this card is really good if it wasn't any other thing. And trying to support something like Jet and Crowin at the same time is kind of a hard fight because they are intrinsically quite different. So 2 stars. Axis Transformation Gearwolf, 1 star. This is basically a way to recycle the Grade 4 in Crow and Dragon, but it's just not very good. You probably have better things to play there as well. Drajul is a deck that also got support this set. They got their Mivich. Drajul is strange because I think the support is very good. I just think Drajul is bad. It's weirdly worse than some of its parts because every card in Drajul individually reads very strong. Once you put it all together, I feel the deck is quite behind. So let's talk about that. Mivich is Purple Flames. Carvanel is a 4-star card. EC3 if you have a Drajul Vanguard or in your right deck. And then for the rest of the turn, you are locked out of EB3 unless by the effect of your Demonic Stone or Demonic Jewel Dragons. This is really good. EC3 in Drajul is good. It usually converts to a card, and when you Soul Blast 4, it's got Vyrgilla skill. You put it to Soul, you draw a card, and stand a Farmer Rearguard. That's also really good. It saves on stuff like CB, which Drajul used to consume that really fast. When you think about it in that way, it thinks you no longer need to pay, right? Like EB3s become free, CB1s are now reduced by 1 basically every turn. This card is a lot better than you think, right? It draws you 1 as well. There's a lot of extra resource going around in Drajul now. The problem I have with it is just that it's good, but Drajul itself doesn't do too much special with this. All the support that Drajul currently has makes it basically Ignis once more without having to run Ignis. But you really want to run Ignis because you need like another name, another grade, and also Ignis is pretty good because you don't have to Persona Ride every turn, whereas Magnus you kind of have to. So it's not that Carvanel is bad, because he really isn't. He is a bit uninspired maybe, but he does give you a lot of resource to play with, from cards to energy to CB. It's just that Drajul kind of sucks. I'm sorry. I love Drajul, but he's not very good. 4-star card, 2-star deck. Mage of Enlightenment, Elquil, 1 star. This gives one of your Demonic Stone Dragon or Jewel Dragons 5k during the battle phase. Go -1 for plus 5k in Drajul, not worth it. There are better things you want to be doing, like Carvanel. Almagestar also got a card. It's a very high quality card, but the deck as a whole is just missing the ceiling to reliably play with the big dogs. It was missing that when it came out. It had a really good floor because you had endless Persona Ride, but her ceiling just misses the mark a bit. Mage of Self-Virtue Zelridius, I think. It's Combined Rusher, that can be free. I mean, you buy one of your rear guards, but that's basically free. And when it attacks, it gains 5k. If opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, it's 15k. And if it's stood by Almagestar, plus 1 crit. Very good card. Similar problem to something like Zamug, where yes, you can have a double crit rear guard. It's just that the deck as a whole is locked with 4 attack pressure, making it really both telegraphed and easy to block. It's 2 stars because I wish it did like one more thing, but it's not bad. And at least the Combined Rusher effect doesn't have to be paid with CP1, so, you know, that's pretty good. Just the whole deck isn't very good. Greedon also got a card. Let's just breeze past this one. After it's boosted, if you're Vanguard of Greedon, stand it. When this unit is put from Rearguard Circle to Soul, one of your units gains 5k, and you can Soul Blast 1 to put it back in your hand. Why would you want this back in your hand? Who knows? Card is bad. Greedon has a lot of jank inside him already. That makes it very difficult to justify playing a great one that doesn't do very much. Alright, on to the pack filler. Verdict Wrangler, 1 star. When it's attacking a grade 3 or greater while boosted, you can move this card and another thing in the same column to the soul. One unit gains 10k. Maybe you could play this card like Hari, but for the most part, 1 star. Not very good. -2 for plus 10k, whoop-de-doo. Prehensile Minister. Replace some Rearguard Circle from hand, Soul Blast 2, and put a card with the same grade as some of the grades you Soul Blasted back into your soul. 1 star. The best application I've seen is like putting a Blangdmire to soul if you're on Nexus right line, but Mischief Sticker, 1 star. Gains 5k, and if it miss, you put it into the soul. Why would you do that? Steam Gunner Kashid. If you soul charge another Kashid this turn, it gains 10k if your opponent is grade 3. Bad card, 1 star. Emerge Astonisher, 1 star. You can soul charge 1 if you didn't soul charge already. What? Play like Gangram. And Steam Maiden Zakutu, 4 stars. Another steampunk lady. Very cool. Fits well with the ODM decks. Fits well with stuff like Gear Chronicle if you don't run Arlims already. Highly recommend this one. 4 stars. Dark States as a whole, not a lot to talk about. The Drajul Mifich is fine, but Drajul is quite bad still. Most of the hype is going to come from the ODM cards, which are also quite expensive. Sorry if you follow my video, they kind of surprised us all with this dual clan stuff. Most of the power, the Dark State split is quite bad this set, because most splits are not going to give you the dual clans. And as such, unfortunately, it looks like Dark States is quite the loser this set. A lot of the support is going to come next set, when they get the Gabuelia's Phantom, and when they get more Dark States, maybe Cyclers. But yeah, for now, not a great split. Latia Mates. This is the Phantom Magnolia archetype. and this is a 3-star archetype to me. It has a really good grind game, but it has quite low kill pressure. All the attacks are kind of small, especially if you go second. The front row is very small, and you have to be able to chain your orders over and over again. You can't really miss one on a turn, or you're really going to have really bad board setup. It'll be quite easy to find them with the orders if you just get one into rotation already, but there isn't a dedicated searcher for their order, which you'll see later. If your opponent is very skilled and checks a bunch of defensives, it's very hard for this deck to find kill turns, unless you're going like crit Valnot, which I found to be a pretty successful win condition for the deck. And this deck will get so much better with like one more good name, so we're really waiting on that second wave, and she's quite hard to pilot. This is probably the hardest Phantom deck to pilot right now, so keep that in mind. There's some stuff with sequencing, some stuff with planning out how you want to use your moons. A fair amount of work is needed for the deck, and I think even at its best, the deck is just like a 3-star deck. There are a fair amount of results coming at a local level for the deck, so it's not kind of doomed or anything. This is probably still the best one, but definitely not a high tier strategy. Very good though. Let's talk about it more in detail. First of all, Lydia Mates Lotte is a 4-star starter. Very cute card. One of the best starters ever printed. Let's move on. Lydia Mates Charis, when rolled upon by Lettuce, you can check the top 7, put 1 Lydia Mates to the drop and 1 normal order to the drop, and then you can gain a 2k if it's on rearguard circle. Card's really good. 3 stars because it's a bit limited in scope. Needing to mill Lydia Mates means currently you want to run a surplus of them, and some of them just aren't very good, or at least they are good, but they just are not things you would normally run 4-offs unless they had the name. Because it's only one of each and you can like double dip into them, it can be kind of weird, but it's still pretty good. Also a decent call target if you whiff stuff like the other great one in the deck. Before we can understand what normal orders you want to mill, aside from the moons, we have to look at Mates with You, a 4-star order card. If you're mag, you can play it from the drop, and if you're not, you can just Soul Blast 1 anyways and play it if you have a Lydia Mates Vanguard. You bind it, and you can play 1 more Crimson Moon that turn, then you look top 3, mill any amount of cards, and shuffle. Then you call 1 from your drop if it's a Lydia Mate unit, and if you have a Magnolia, you gain 5k to 2 of the units on the board. If it is Persona My Turn, you gain 4 5ks. Oh, and if it is a normal order you target with Mates with You, you can add that to your hand instead, so you can add a moon to your hand. Order's really good. Milling up to 3 is really strong. You can mill stuff like the Combined Rusher this deck has. Putting moon to drop is crucial. And of course you want the chain of milling this over and over and over again with itself. And it creates a lot of filter in the deck. Very strong card. Unfortunately, it's so strong that the deck is reliant on seeing it very much. So you will have some games where you just don't see it at a certain point and your turns are really bad. Aside from that, 4-star card, very strong. Next up, Lattice. When rolled upon by Magnolia, you can call 1 grade 2 or less from your drop zone to rearguard circle, and if you didn't call Soul Charge 1, but you'll pretty much always have a call target, and if it attacks, it is a 15k attacker. This card is pretty good. Calling back 1 is useful. You can call stuff back like a Pirai, you can call stuff back like, I guess the Izaso is the best analog for it. Lots of really useful things this card can call back. Unfortunately, just no real synergy with the order, but its rearguard skill is fine too if you have to call it in a pinch, so 3-star. Magnolia Phantom, 4 stars. Soul Blast 1, and then 2 of your units can attack from back row, and if your opponent is grade 3 or greater, you can CB1 and the back row gains 10k as well, and Magnolia gains +1 grade and +1 drive. This is pretty useful because it makes stuff like Twin Cast even chunkier, lets you use the grade 3 Stride Dragon, so very strong, even though it doesn't look like it. And for the Phantom skill, you can bind as many moons as you want, up to 2, and in return, any number of rearguards on your board equal to those moons back to your hand. And for the rest of your opponent's turn, the Lydia Mates gain 5000 shield in your hand. Crazy skill. Lets you cycle stuff like Ride because you're going to be calling her back with stuff like Mates with You, then bouncing her back, and it makes all your Lydia Mates really chunky. You can use up to 2 if you really feel like you're going to die next turn otherwise, or you can just use 1, making this deck very strong in its grind, as you can just over the course of a couple turns have a bunch of 10k shields. Very difficult for quite a few decks to break through in time before this deck hits its Valnot crit turn. This card is really good. It's the most interesting and most potent of the Phantom units, I feel. It has a little bit of aggression. You have some compensation in gaining a 10k to back row if you go second, and the defensive skill is very useful. It really is just hindered by the fact the Lydia Mates right now are just mostly okay. They could be a lot better, but if this deck gets more support, this deck will be quite good. Lydia Mates Delash, 4 stars again. Check the top cards equal to your Lydia Mates and put 1 to your hand. You know, this includes your Vanguard, so you can always check top 2 and add 1. Very versatile, you don't even need to show it to your opponent. And when it attacks, you can gain 5k, put it to soul, and bounce one of your rearguards. Also super strong. The deck can get kind of needy with soul, so you want to use this here and there. And also getting the additional bounce is very strong. This is the best Lydia Mates this deck currently has access to, and I would highly recommend playing this at 4. You just have to be careful about counter blasting because you don't have a main phase counter charger, and Magnolia requires CB1, at least for its going second skill. So Be warned about that. But other than that, great card. 4 stars. The deck's Moon Searcher is a 3-star card. The moons aren't super important in Magnolia to play, you just need them in your drop ASAP and you have a lot of ways to mill it, so this card gets a lot worse. And because you need actual Liael mate units, and this obviously isn't one of them, this card is unlikely to be run at 3. The Energy Blast and CB does kind of impact your deck as well. You do have some Energy Blasters, you do have some Counter Blasters, so this is a hard card to run high quantities of. So it's only 3 stars, but hey, you do need to run some amount of it. Liael Mate's Alpin. If you have a grade 3 or greater Magnolia, +5. If it's grade 4, +10. And at the end of battle, you can EV3 and retire it to CC1 and Soul Charge 1. This is decent. EV3 and retire is very costly, though the benefit is quite nice. Random Soul Charge is also quite bad, so you'd rather just kind of maintain it with Delage. So this ends up being just like the biggest beater you have. The CC1 seems useful, but it's only mid-battle. So you can kind of like still get CB denied if you're not careful. It's fine. It's good based on the Liael Mate's tag, but it's less good than you think it is. Just because it doesn't recur, it doesn't give you a direct card advantage. It's just a underwhelming card in practice. Tanu, when your Magnolia is placed, you can call it back to Rearguard Circle +5 if you don't already have one, and it can intercept from back row. This card is really good. You don't want to run too many of it because obviously it won't call back an infinite number of them, but other than that, crazy card. Intercept from back row is very useful. It's always a 10k shield, at least basically, of how Magnolia works, and because only 5 units can attack total, this is going to boost like one thing, maybe your Vanguard or one side, and it will be very useful. I think this is one of the better cards in the deck. It's just a shame it is grade 1 and has kind of a limited recall ability. But yeah, good card. Better than Alpin and a rare rarity, very strong. Liael Mate Simius. If you have a Magnolia Vanguard, you can just EB2 and call it back. You can do this multiple times a turn, and if you want, you can give it 5k, but if you do, it has to retire. This never matters because you're just going to bounce back to your hand, basically. 3 stars as well. This card is really good. +5k isn't that great. I mean, like, Lattice is already +5k on her own, but this EB2 to recover herself is very strong. Frequently, you will end up in a position where you have no Liael mates in rotation, or like a very few amount of them, and your mates with you power will be very low if you don't have Liael mates already on board. So you just EB2 a bunch of times and call these back, and then you mates with you and you'll get like 4 units buffed again. She's really strong. I think this card has to be run at 4. It's just that I think it's run at 4 because of recursion, but its actual power skill is quite weak. So if there was something better in that power department, you'd rather play that, but this recursion is so strong you can't ignore this. On like a P-right turn, it's like a 30k with a mates with you. That's pretty decent. And you can obviously choose not to +5k if you think your opponent's going to guard it anyways with just 1 card, and then it'll stick on board as an intercept. Very useful card. 3 stars. Hello, it's me, Squaggy from the future. I realized we didn't put this in the slide, so I'm doing this now. Mythage of Ever-Changing Gutaneus is Chris Rain's Mythage. When you discard it from your hand during your turn, basically just ride, you can check top 5 and add Chris Rain to your hand. And if you have Divine Skill this battle, you can CB1 and call it to Rearguard from the drop. And when she attacks, if it was placed by your Vanguard's ability or chosen by Chris Rain, it gets 5k. If your opponent is grade 3, +10k. And if it got 10k and you use Divine Skill this turn, +5k. 1 star. This card is really bad. It is competing with a lot of really powerful cards in Chris Rain. Chris Rain already makes 5 attacks pretty easily with Mint. So this card is really confusing, and there's no other way to discard it other than via your write-up. So quite frankly, I have no idea what they were planning with this one, and you can kind of see how I forgot about this one. She is not very good. Okay, back to the rest of it. Juicy Fruity got cards too, 1 star, and the deck as a whole is 1 star. Despite what the game on stream I played looked like, if you were there for that, this deck is still quite bad. Play anything else, the deck still doesn't have a real win condition. It's just hoping to drive check well without a way to drive check well. I wouldn't recommend playing this seriously, and even casually, I feel like you could have more fun somewhere else. Still, let's talk about them. Temp Smirk Sadamao. When you place it, if you have plant token, CB1, draw 1, and it's a 5/5 if you have Juicy Fruity Vanguard. This is the friendly broccoli from DZ-BT13. That's the kind of card that Juicy Fruity has, a DZ-BT13 card. Still, it's good, I suppose. I would play it at some quantities, but it's just not in a very good deck. So 2 stars. Liael also got cards. The cards do not change Liael's game plan a lot. It's still the same one-dimensional deck, but Liael's ceiling does increase with this. It's still a good aggro deck, but it's not much else. Feline Wind Vuja is a 2-star card. You can rest this unit and give one of your units 10k, usually your Vanguard, and at the end of the turn retire it. But Liael sucks it into the soul anyway, so that doesn't matter. And if you suck it into the soul, at the end of the turn you can bounce a unit as well, as long as it's not a Sentinel. Card is pretty good. Can save the front row restander that Liael has. But that's it. Limited in scope card still doesn't make Liael much better, but it's still a decent card. Maybe around 1 or 2. Entrete. This card can be called the back row center when Liael stands, so once per game. Not good enough to run. Please don't run this. Bastard Memory Saccharina. This is kind of like the on-hit painkillers we discussed at the start. But instead of needing to hit, you don't have to, and you can Soul Blast 1 and bounce it back to your hand. 1 star. Why would you want to bounce a card that does nothing? Finally, we have the Perfect Guard. 4 stars. Perfect shape Shalom. Very cute. I love the little ghost on her lap. All the ghosts look so sad in the sun. This is an adorable Perfect Guard. 4 stars. You know, if you're into the vampire sub-archetype that I think... What's her name? I don't remember. The vampire Lyrical Grade 3. This one is cute for that. Aside from that, yeah, that's all of Lyrical Monasterio. Real big winner of the set, surprisingly. Magnolia is super powerful, relatively speaking anyways, and I would not be surprised if in future this deck is a tiered deck. Aside from that, I'm sorry Juicy Fruity fans, there's not much here for you. Let's move on. Onto Brandt Gate. And all of it is basically Zorga Phantom. Zorga Phantom is unique. It is quite competent and it is quite fast. Basically, your whole deck is online on like turn 2, maybe even turn 1. But because its attack pattern by the end of the game is very telegraphed and limited, you're going to be struggling to deal that 6 damage. But honestly, if you just gave it some like 1 or 2 more good cards, I think this deck would be in contention for a real strategy. So 3 stars currently. I don't think it's much worse than something like Alphard. If anything, it might be better. And yeah, just don't underestimate the early rush this deck can do. First of all, we have to talk about this starter, Grain Researcher Dream Nibbling. 4 stars. I need a fat fucking chud as my starter at all times. So brilliant. Grain Security Rancor Chain, 4 stars as well, just because it places the token to your zone, which is the Research Lab token. You can basically just rest it and play an Ubermensch. What is the Ubermensch? It is this guy. First of all, unfortunate name. Second of all, it gains 5k per grade of your Vanguard, and when you do the Alchemix, which is Zorga's kind of mid-battle overdress mechanic, I guess, you can move this to open front row rearguard circle in the same column, and then at the end of the turn retire it. This makes your 4th attack, it's your only 4th attacker, and it gains a ton more effects with Alchemix. This card is pretty good, it works pretty early, and a lot of your units come back when you play it, you know, obviously plus 15k, it's a 15k booster, and it's what your main gimmick is built around, and I think it's a well-designed gimmick, so 4 stars. Regrain Creature Black Tears Husk Dragon. This is the Black Tears Husk from Stoicheia. When rolled on by Zorga, EB3, check top 7, put 1 to your hand, 1 to your drop. That isn't a Sentinel. And if you don't drop something, put 1 Crimson Moon to drop. Really useful card, very strong to get the Crimson Moons in rotation. 3 stars because EB3. That is a weirdly limiting skill on this deck, so yeah, at least it restricts like the deck building a little bit. Hard to run stuff like Ace Unit for early game. Other than that, yeah, that's it. This card is fine, it's good. And this deck doesn't really need to play the Crimson Moons anyways, so it is very useful to just directly mill 1. Zorga Phantom himself is a 3-star card. On swing, you can CB1 and move your Genome Gels to the Alchemix token, and you can Alchemix, which is basically just adding all the effects. Then if you have 1 or more Crimson Moons, both it and the Alchemix token gain 5k, and at 3 or more it gains 10k, so you only need 3 in your deck total basically. And the Phantom skill is to bind 1 and call 1 back. Your Genome Gels, I mean. This card is fine. I wish it was a bit less restricted in needing to call back anything with the Phantom skill. Would give you a bit more flexibility in deck building maybe, but other than that, it's okay. It just telegraphs an attack pattern too easily. But the deck could easily get stronger with more Genome Gels. It's just that the boss itself is just kind of okay. So let's talk about the Genome Gels. Cranial Wing can call itself back to rearguard circle when you place the Ubermensch if you don't have one already. And if you're Zorga, it's 5k. And when you Alchemix, the unit gets 1 crit. This card is 4 stars. The Alchemix effect aside, it comes back for free. It can come back as early as turn 1 for an extra intercept on turn 1. It's like the Dino Dragon basically. 4 stars. Shadow Eater Running Dog, another Genome Gel. Lets you mill anything from your deck, which is crazy, but it's just always your Genome Gels. You always have stuff in rotation because of this, and this lets you CB1 to draw 1 card extra in addition, and when it's Alchemix, you can draw 1 card and CB1 to draw another. This card is crazy strong. It's just that milling 1 thing in your deck is always going to be a Genome Gel in this deck. Can't really be too flexible with it, but yeah, it makes this deck super consistent. And Bite Engraver, EB3 can be called back if you have the token, and when it's mixed, you get 10k to your token. It's probably the worst of the genome gels, but that doesn't make it too bad. EB3, the respawn itself is fine. Your token needs power anyway, so this is useful. But in future, if you get more genome gels, this might be the first thing to go. Zorga got some other units that aren't genome gels, and these ones are pretty different. All of these in the hand can be moved to the order zone to draw one, as long as you don't have one of the same name already. And this one, Flesh and Bone Tearing, in the order zone has the skill where you can retire one or two of your rear guards, and you can draw a card, and if you retire two, you can't charge one. Plus, when you Alchemix, when this card is already in the drop zone, you can call it back to open rear guard behind the Alchemix, presumably, and then retire it at the end of the turn. This card, 4 stars. It's super strong. It gives your Alchemix token a bit more power. It is great for the resource game because you get to not only draw one to improve hand, you also get the CC1, and you do counterblast a fair bit with both Zorga and the dog skill. So this is a fantastic card. You're always going to be running this even in future when you get newer Regrained Researchers. I think this is always going to be a card you want to run. I just wish it had a way to get itself out of order zone to cycle itself, but yeah. Aside from that, 4 stars, fantastic card. Hendrina makes her appearance from Stoicheia. She's the same hand skill, and as a booster, it's a 15k booster for Zorga, as long as you Soul Blast 1 to discard a card from your top 3, and that can be useful to find moons to discard and kind of give yourself a little bit of filter. And in the order zone, if you already have 2 moons bound, you can discard a card and give yourself Triple Drive. This is a pretty good card. I mean, obviously it's 3 stars for a reason, but I just wish it had a way to, again, cycle itself out, and the Triple Drive is a bit slow, which is why it's not 4 stars. I wish it at least let you Triple Drive going second, right? But needing 2 moons bound, it means you are only going to get your Triple Drive once you get to turn 4, regardless of which turn you're on, and that can feel a bit bad. I think Zorga could have easily had Triple Drive on turn 3 and not been too overbearing, at least if you're going second. The boost skill is just okay. Filling the deck isn't bad, but having the Soul Blast 1, you don't have an amazing way to get Soul. Other than that, the card is really good, just some minor flaws here and there. Vortex Prober. In the order zone, you can bind it and then give units power equal to the number of moons. You have 5k per moon, and that is a really good skill. It's really nice that this card also leaves the order zone so that you can keep cycling this one so they're never dead in your hand. It also gives you a bit of power scaling as the game goes on, which is pretty important. If it did like one more thing, it would be 4 stars, but as of now, this is a fine 3-star common. Really strong card. The last regrain card, Grudge Breaking. This card sucks. It is a 15k shielder at best, and at worst, at least it's 10k, but it doesn't do anything for your actual gameplay state. If it was at least like grade 2, it could be like a Buster Barrage target. Other than that, not much. 1 star. Finally, Margaret, 2 stars. First of all, she looks wonderful. But second of all, in Zorga exactly, it is really difficult to see the necessity for high Margaret counts. You're probably going to run 3 moons max in Zorga because that's where your skills peak. And for the most part, because you don't run a lot of moons, you also don't have to run a lot of Margarets. Still, if you're interested in something like the Brandt Gate Equilibra Phantom that got revealed in the manga, if you think that's going to come out soon, I recommend picking these up ASAP. But yeah, just a lot more limited in scope compared to the other Phantoms, where those cyclers, they were more so competing with the resources you needed in the deck already, like EB or CB. This one just doesn't have a lot to do even in its own deck. Okay, now we can talk about Impuldio. Unfortunately, Impuldio, all the support here still keeps it at like a 2 stars set. The deck is really showing its age, and even though some of the new cards are at least interesting / good, it can be tough to find the space. Impuldio just is a bit slow, takes a while to get its engine going, and once you get to go and do its divine skill turn, it's somehow less lethal than something like Alphard, who just has more innate crit and more innate center pressure. So the card they got was Hute Ristique, and this card basically is a combined rusher, but instead of it being from your drop, it's from your Automod gauge. I can't believe it took this long to get a skill like that. And when you attack, it is 15k, and if you have 5 or more Automods, it's 20k. It's fine, but Impuldio's front row is already pretty occupied with the other grade 3 and sometimes it's the big interceptor, sometimes it's the card that maybe retires, I think that's sometimes a front row consideration. And now you even have the restander. So a lot harder to find a space for something like this. It's okay early game, but it really does fall off. Really interesting to have the gauge zone finally do something interesting, but yeah, a bit too late for that. I didn't even group these under the Seraph Snow archetype because these are not good prison cards. These are all 1 star. Pico Cadmium. It's a card you discard from your hand, put it to soul, and when it boosts a grade 3 or greater, it forces an imprison from drop, and it gets 2k if more of your... I don't even know why I'm reading this. This card is not good. Do not play this. Shocking Capupine. This is kind of like the other card in the double rare slot that Prison had a long time ago. They could put an Imprison card back to the deck, I believe. But no, this card is significantly worse. It's cool to gain a bit of power, but there's no way you want this in your front row, right? And you gotta spend the energy on other things at Prison. Durable Pacifist. 4 stars. She's such a cutie. Look at her pink hair. And my god, tiny girl, big arms. Really nice design. Really like it. This is the first humanoid one we have. I guess we have the Encounter one, right? What's her name? The Link Joker one. We have that. But yeah, still cool to see. 4-star design. Really like it. Overall, Brandt Gate this set, pretty good. I think the Zorga cards, they're not amazing, but they're good enough to see some like local level viability. You could win competitive events with them. I think it's not so bad. And this is the deck probably that if you could really only afford the rare moons, but you really want to play a Phantom deck, I would recommend the Zorga one. That deck is pretty much complete in archetype. Alright, moving on. Berucrea, and also all of Stoi. To me, I think Berucrea may be the best deck from this set. It has really high pressure and is strong going second, putting it in really good contention with some of the meta picks like Minerva, and denying something like Vyrgilla going second. And if it's not against a high retire deck like maybe Varga, you have a really strong resource game. And I know a lot of people think, oh, you know, you skillfully filter and then you check a bunch of triggers. Well, that makes a deck good. Having the potential to sack really well is a real virtue in Vanguard. And this deck can really sack. So let's go on with the skills. First up, the Grade 0. 4 stars because I like the fact that they finally have a kind of a right line that ages the character. I think we haven't had one since youth. But yeah, super cute. Really like it when they do these kind of things of showing like linear progression of time for these units. So yeah. Grade 1, Apprentice Magic Caster Berucrea. Basically, when you ride it, you get to play 3 magic cards from your deck or hand, and you have to put them in the order zone. And if you put 1 card from your hand or more, shuffle the deck, and draw 1 and shuffle the deck. Card is really good. Card immediately filters 3 from your deck, and will give you some compensation if you whiff slightly. But you know, if you whiff too much, you know, you're gonna get owned, but really low chance. So what are the magic cards? The magic cards, you can only run 1 of, and there's a Grade 1, Grade 2, and Grade 3. The Grade 1 gives any unit 5k. 4-star card. This card is incredible. I know it doesn't read like much, but giving anything 5k early on makes it like put like 5k to your center, and it's basically really hard to guard. Like swing 13 into 8 or like 15 into 10. That is a real good number that a lot of decks can't safely guard that, making you so you are able to push really early damage. And it helps you hit nice breakpoints later on in the game as well. Growth Magic Voxel is the Grade 2 one, and you can rest it to draw 1. And if you've already rested to draw 1 this fight, you can also rest it to draw 1, then drop 1. Also 4 stars, I do think this is one of the weaker ones in the deck, like draw 1 and obviously cycling is fine. I just think the other ones provide a bit more advantage, but they're all very strong. The draw 1, drop 1 isn't so bad in Berucrea because you have regular orders you want to discard in this deck anyways. You basically just go +1 every time, and you can use it to dig, and once you're done digging, you can just stop using this and just start slamming power to the center line or something. So 4 stars. Exlunas, the healing magic. You can recall anything from your drop zone, but they don't get their auto effects when they do. This is a 4-star card as well. You just call things that don't have important auto effects, right? And of course, their Mythic Nils Veigar gets its auto effect, even if you call it via this skill. But calling stuff like Philander, or in some variants, Harvest Elf, or even something like Inlet Pulse if you're playing those variants, those will all gain like the relevant effects. And this helps you out, secure resource efficiency as the game goes on. There's no deck in the game that can just respawn any unit for free like this. I think this is very unique to her. The closest we have is like Deeplands' EB2. This one you just guarantee 1 Resurrector return, and that's pretty good. Now that we've talked about all of those, we can talk about the Grade 2 ride line, Peerless Magic Caster Berucrea. Basically you just mill 2 from the top 7, and this is on the Grade 3 ride. Really strong. A lot of the cards in your deck really do benefit from being in the drop zone, like the Grand Magic Order, which I'll talk about later, and this is basically filter 2. So by turn 3, you have filtered at minimum 5 cards from your deck. This makes your quad driving thing that you do later on way more threatening, because you've already filtered a ton of cards. Plus it means that stuff like Philander gets online earlier, which is really strong in this deck. So 4 stars, even though it doesn't seem like much, and also that it's just a copy of the Deeplands Grade 2. Alright, the Berucrea Grade 3 herself. Every time you play an order, or you use the orders in your order zone, basically when you play one of her magic orders, either the actual order, or like resting the ones in your order zone, you can choose one unit to get 5k, usually your Vanguard, and you can Soul Blast 1 to rest the magic order to play that magic order as well. Kind of like 2 orders per turn once you hit Grade 3. And at the end of the battle, this unit attacks CB1 restand, and it gains a drive to 0, but because of the Grand Magic Order, which is also a 4-star card, Segre Leos, you can bind it from your drop zone, and your Vanguard's drive will not decrease by effects. So with that in mind, both those cards are 4 stars. So I think this deck is really good. because you can just slam a bunch of power to your center line, go second, and then just have 2 twin drives in a row. It may be 4 attack locked, but 2 of those are center line Vanguard swings, which can really threaten a lot of damage. They threaten a ton of triggers as well, because you filter a ton of cards from your deck. Using the auto skill, you can basically just pop a ton of power to Berucrea to the center line, so you're always going to hit for a really big number early on as well. There's also a bit of flexibility in having the 3 magic orders to choose from, just having to, not use one of them. You still get to use 2, and they're all very strong abilities, and there are just going to be a ton of games where you're just going to drive check 4 times and just win off that. There are a ton of decks that do have a lot of drive, but those usually have a really big cost. For example, like stride decks, for instance. If you're playing a stride deck, in order to get triple drive, you discard 1 to start your turn, and after that gives you triple drive, and you have to build your deck around having grade 3s. This you're going to mill the card anyways, so it never has to impact your hand, or you can cycle it out with the grade 2 magic. So you're just going to have a random +4 once the turn starts on turn 3, and that's really good. I feel like that's very strong. I personally underestimated it early on, but now I do think that it's probably one of the better decks right now with just this offense. Luckily, it has a lot more going for it as well. A Nils Vega, when placed, can check the top 5 cards of your deck and add a Berucrea or the Grand Magic, and for every time your Vanguard attacks, it gains +5, so it becomes a 20k beater. And if you play it from the drop with your healing magic, it will still get the CB1 skill. 3 stars, I don't know why it's only top 5, make it top 7, that would make it 4 stars, I guess. Right now, it's just okay. At least you get compensation if you whiff, but the search effect is really narrow. I wish it was a little wider. And power-wise, it's not even the biggest attacker in this deck. So yeah, 3-star card, still pretty good. Having power and a search skill is nice, but I just can't bring myself to say it's 4 stars. Why is it top 5? Make it top 7. Amiable Fairy. This card, when placed on Rearguard Circle, you can mill 1 from the top 3, and when it attacks, if you were placed it from the drop zone this turn, it gets 15k. 3-star card. Really nice beater, works pretty early on, even before your opponent is grade 3, so that this hits for 20 to guard. And mill 1 is nice. I don't think every build's gonna run this at 4, your mileage may vary, but I think it's pretty good. So 3 stars. Treetop Bow Hunter Trita is a 4-star card. This card is crazy strong. When you play the Grand Magic, you call it the Rearguard Circle, so basically you call the unit for free from drop. Then it gains +2, so it's a 10k booster, and it can intercept from back row. And when you put it on GC, you can EB3 endgame shield +10. This comes up a lot. This card is very strong. I hate cards that are intercepting from the back row and give a ton of shield value, like Block Horse and this asshole. So don't sleep on this card. It doesn't read like a lot, but it really is very strong. I think a lot of people underestimate the value of guard skills, especially the advantage you get from just playing the Grand Magic, calling it back, and getting an extra 15k shield on your opponent's turn. Really strong. A lot of the deck doesn't use energy as is, so this card is crazy good. We are approaching the territory where good double res can have 3 really powerful effects. Okay, now let's talk about Levidras. The card it got is fine, it's pretty good, but it overlaps a lot with stuff in the deck already, like the recent PR that came out, so it's not a noticeable improvement. Plus Levidras is already kind of slow as is, so it is hard to see this deck coming back in any real way. Still, the card is pretty good. Swiftwind Huntsman Guardias. When placed on Rearguard Circle, if you have an Affinity Eyes marker, you can CB1 to either draw a card or call a card back from your drop. It's the 3rd copy of Huli that gets you. And when it attacks, you can gain 5k. It's not a bad card, it's good flexibility, but why is it so slow? Why does it need Infinity Eye marker? God forbid this deck does something on 2, right? It's fine. You may play this, you may not play this. You have a lot of options for cards that call back from the drop zone in Levidras. So this is just another one of those. It doesn't add anything to your game plan, but it is a pretty decent card. Artful Mantis Slicer, 1 star. It's a guard restrict card, but you need more than just guard restrict to be good in this metagame. Plus, where do you find the space on board? Levidras is such a space problem these days. Like, where do you find the space to put this new unit? You can't. It's very difficult. Leonor also got some new cards. Unfortunately, she has already a lot of good cards to choose from, and the card quality here is pretty weak. Beautiful Melody of Awe and Faith Croxine. It's a 15k attacker, 10k shielder, but you can only attack or boost if you're Leonor. But when you place a Leonor, if you have a Leonor in your soul already, you can Soul Blast 1, call this one back. I don't really understand this one, it's kind of slow. Its Combined Rusher skill only works on like 4? Why would you do this? You already have 15k boosters. It's anything with like a Sinceret. Don't play this card, it's bad. Drumming Wombat is a hell of a guy. Unfortunately, he's kind of weak. Soul Blast 1 to move it to Guard Circle and gains 5k shield. It's not very good, don't play this. And finally, Battle Siren Apocryne. This is the new PG for Stoicheia, and it's 4-star. It's nice to see the Battle Sirens kind of get a resurgence, When Argo Sirens players will fit real nicely in that. And that is all the Stoicheia cards. Stoicheia, the set, I think is pretty good, just because I think Berucrea is very good. Maybe not tier 1, but I think at least like tier 2, high tier 3 at worst, I think is where that deck will sit by the end of the metagame. I'm pretty confident in that deck. I've seen some results here and there. I see a lot more people trying to get it because it is fairly affordable at the very least. At the very least, if I'm wrong about the strength of the deck, I think I'm not wrong in the fact that it is currently a little bit affordable. It doesn't require moons, so it is something to look out for, and it looks pretty fun. I recommend you guys pick it up. If you are even slightly interested, you may as well if you have the funds. Okay, final thoughts. This set is really cool. A lot of the cards are really thematic. A lot of the cards are pretty good, and some decks can be reasonably built in their archetypes. Alphard can kind of be built from the box. Zorga and the Magnolia definitely can, but of course the caveat is that the double rare moon is crazy. You'd have to do it with like the normal rare moon in order to get a cheaper deck. And overall, the price of this game is getting a little crazy, especially these kind of chase double rares. Are you kidding me? The Crimson Moonlight card is just very cynical business sense. I'm just not a fan of the practice. I understand that card games are a luxury hobby, but at the very least, I think everyone should be able to afford something reasonable and not have to feel like they need the newest thing, right? I think you should make it so that people are comfortable with what they have. And I think a lot of that comes from just making the moons like rare and common, maybe. Wouldn't that be better? Or just make all the moons commons? Don't you want it to feel like the Phantasma is invading or something? I don't know. I just think that those prices, especially for like the moons and the animuses, those can get a lot much, especially when you release a product saying Master Deck set for Odium and Amorta. And at most, we can assume, oh, you will have some support for these decks, but also you want to sell new players on like the fantasy of building these decks from the bot, and then release something like Animus, which costs an arm and a leg. That can feel pretty bad, especially for me. I told a bunch of people, at least on the YouTube video, like, hey, you know, you can probably build Odium for kind of cheap, and now you can't. And I didn't have the fucking clairvoyance to say otherwise, so I don't know. I just am getting a bit, you know, I think the prices of some of the chase cards are a bit high, especially when they only go to like 1, 2, 3 decks maybe. And it's even worse if they're just middling decks like some of the Phantom ones. So, I don't know. That's just my rambling on price. And I think the meta will be impacted in some way. I think Berucrea has a good shot. I think Animus decks have a good shot. I think Magnolia Phantom is doing quite well as well. I would imagine that deck has what it takes to break into the larger metagame. But the strong 5 decks right now are Minerva, Rewinder, Toys, Vyrgilla, Deeplands. That Fearsome 5 is just so strong. They're so far and above whatever other decks can do right now. Maybe like Toys is kind of getting crept a little bit. Yeah, but aside from that, I mean, it's hard to see a world where anything new can take the spot of the top 5 without the top 5 getting hit a little bit at least. To be clear, everything I've talked about in this video, I'm talking about before the context of Kai and Aichi decks, mainly because it's for like the format where those two aren't out yet, but these are, which does exist for some people. It definitely exists for me. So I think once those 2 decks come out, they'll be a lot better than anything in this set. But for now, I think at least like Magnolia, Berucrea, and the Animus decks, I think the Draconis can also do really well. I think those will be where the meta centers itself around if those are good. I think those may be the better decks from this set. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry this took a while. I'm actually quite sick recording this. I've had to take a ton of breaks from my voice. Nevertheless, I just wanted to get this out there before Chinese New Year really got hectic. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the new set. I hope you guys can afford something from the set and just have a good time. If you can't, remember, our moons, Berucrea, print out their cards, you do all that fine stuff. Just make sure you have a way to engage with the game and have a good time, okay? And if you are also like a Chinese person like I am, or you celebrate Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year, 恭喜发财, you know. I hope you have a good one, have a good rest, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye. Thank you to my supporters on Ko-Fi, Lang Long, and Big Ben. Thank you for helping the Squaggy conglomerate produce more great content.